Well, good afternoon, everybody, and the final council meeting for the year. And could I just wish everybody here, I hope they have a lovely Christmas with their families and a rest. It's been a very long year. And I welcome everybody. We don't look as if we have our youth councillor here, but school has broken up, so Carlia may arrive. But I'd ask Councillor Donaldson if you could read the prayer, please.
Kia ora, your worship. Karakia mō te kaunihera. E te atua kaharawa ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mātauranga. Manaki tia mai mātou o pōnonga I tēnei pō, e mahi nei I a mātou mahi, mō te painga o ngā tangata o te kaunihera o Rotorua. Takua mai kia tau te rangimarie ki runga I a mātou I ngā wā katoa, ko ihu karaiti hoki tō mātou ariki. Amen. In English, Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this afternoon, as we strive to do all things good for the betterment of the people of the Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Well, I call for any apologies. Are there any apologies? We have received none, so there have none been put forward, so we will not vote on those. Are there any, we'll move to item 3, are there any items of any declarations of interest? Councillor Gould.
Chair, my name is listed on recommendation number 8 on page 158 on about 3 or 4 occasions, but I can't tell you what parts they are because it is in the confidential part.
Any other declarations of interest? There appear to be none. Move now to item 4, urgent business. Are there any urgent items for consideration?
Yes, Your Worship. Madam Mayor, I have an...
Councillor Kent, I'll call you. Councillor Kent.
There we are.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm raising this item under urgency because it impacts on the credibility of the Council and an item that appears later on this agenda. Last Friday, the Chief Executive received a formal...
Councillor Kent, would you like to identify what the urgent item is about? That's how you usually...
of serious breaches of the law witnessed by me to have occurred in your shameful dismissal of Councillor Serank.
Point of order, Madam.
Councillor Donald.
My point of order is if the matter is later in the agenda, then it's not urgent business, it's in the agenda.
I'm going to rule on that item. It is that we will be considering if it is related to that item, and that is on the agenda. It's not an item before full council as you are alleging, so we will discuss that item in urgent business and on consideration of confidentiality.
Chair.
I have so ruled. We haven't seen there's no document before council at this stage. Ask the clerk to receive the document, please, and bring it up to the Chief Executive for consideration. I have ruled on the notice of motion. This appears to be an affidavit concerning the dismissal of Councillor Sarang, an item in confidential business. My ruling so stands.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We move on now. I've finished. I've made a ruling on that item. Point of order, Councillor Gould. Certainly.
Recommendation number 8 in previous councils has always been an open agenda item, and yet today it is a confidential item.
It certainly is a ruling of mine. This is an item that council officers have recommended be in confidentiality. I have agreed following our meeting that we need full and frank discussion, and that will be held in confidence. And as the chair of these proceedings, that is my ruling. Move on now to confirmation of council minute.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. A mover of the minutes of council on the 12th of November.
A point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Councillor Bentley had his hand raised and you didn't see it.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Bentley. You, pardon?
I said I'm only little.
It's all right.
I want to move that the confidential item regarding delegations be moved out of confidential and into the public arena, as I think that the general public has a right to know what is going on in this council, because they voted for us.
That is something that I have ruled on. I have ruled on from the chair, and you are too late. There will be a time in which, after our full and frank discussion, in confidential, which is only appropriate, as is my ruling, that the public will know. So we move on now to confirmation of council minutes. I have a mover, Councillor Gould, to second that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 12th of November be confirmed as a true and accurate record. All those in favour,
Thank you.
please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Question? Yes, Councillor Strink.
On the Library and Children's Health Hub update. The last bullet point, those officers provide a report detailing how the increase in the project funding will be accommodated within the existing long-term plan. Can I ask, I understand there's some urgency, can I ask when that will be available?
And would you like to? It will be available early next year. This is subject to discussion between another partner and Rotorua Lakes Council. Councillor Gould,
Page 9, number 3, recommendation number 1, Waipa
could you
horse
just
paddock.
slow down and we'll find it. You've got
Okay.
it, we haven't. Sorry.
Page 9.
Yes?
No, it's got 3 on that page. Recommendation 1, Waipa Horse Paddock Reserve. Is there a problem with this particular area being leased out with the bridge at the present time?
I've got to refresh my memory. That was in full discussion, and I'm not sure. Dave? So it's point 2 of the Waipa Horse Paddock recommendation.
No, councillors, there is no issue with it in regards to bridge.
Mr.
Thank
That's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. There's a working group working on this, so I'm sure Dave's right in the middle of it now, but that's fine. Thank you for that, Councillor Gould. Right, we move on. Sorry, Councillor Stewart.
On the same item, Just through you, Madam Chair, has the Rotorua BMX Club uplifted the lease? Or are further negotiations to be held? That's all I need to know. As Sport and Recreation, I hope that I'll be briefed in terms of where that's at as well. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. No, they haven't uplifted the lease yet.
Thank you. Those are the questions. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Move now to item 5.2 that was circulated separately for you all. A mover and a seconder that the minutes of the tabled council bylaw hearing 10th of December be confirmed as a true and correct record. You move. Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Stewart? No, you're not seconded. No, oh, that's right. Councillor Wepper? Oh, yeah.
I put my apology and I was unable to attend, and yet I'm marked as being present, but my apology did go, and I understand. Thank you.
Certainly. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was an apology. I was chairing another meeting at the time, but I have watched the submissions online, so I just would like that noted that I have viewed the submissions. Thank you.
It's a very good point that all of these meetings are recorded, so all those present can always look back and see the recordings online. I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Item 6. Now we'll move to page 27. I call for a mover and a second that the report recommendation from other committees be received. Thank you, Councillor Bickett. Seconded, Councillor Rowe Kawa-Tate. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Is there any discussion? Appears to be none. A mover and a seconder for point 2 that the following recommendations of the Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting held on the 25th of November 2015 be adopted. We'll take each recommendation separately. Recommendation 1 is the Acacia Road Loop Road Reserve, change of reserve classification. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you'll move. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Sarank. All those in favour, please say aye. To point 2 to the vote, do I have a mover for point 2 that the term of the lease? Councillor Bentley. Seconded, Councillor Hunt. Yes.
Can I be assured that prior to moving this motion that the Lakes Community Board and the wider Okata community have been consulted on this matter?
I can't give you that assurance, but yes, could you clarify,
Yes,
Councillor Johnson?
I can answer that, Your Worship. During the committee meeting, it was quite clear that the community of Akaraka, including the committee board and Locker, had been consulted and were in support.
Thank you. So we had a mover and a seconder. I think it was Councillor Hunt. Bentley and Hunt. Yeah, thank you. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Item 3, that the following recommendations of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 9th of December recommendation be adopted. Recommendation 1, the schedule of meetings. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hunt. Seconder, Councillor Wepper. All those in favour? Contrary? 2 against. Do you want your votes recorded? That's Councillor Bentley and Councillor Stewart against. Right. Move now to staff reports. Item 7. This is page 30 in your order book. Recommendation 1, the partnership agreement with Te Aroha Do I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by Councillor Sturt, that the report partnership agreement with Te Aroha be received. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. JP, would you like to speak and introduce the report, please?
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Councillors. Councillors, the document you have before us and the recommendation before you is just to ask for you to agree to signing of the partnership agreement with the new Te Aroha board. Councillors, as we've detailed in the introduction here, really this is a symbolic document which really captures some of the messaging and some of the input that was received during the presentation by Te Aroha back last year, so about this date a year ago, when they made their presentation of the Te Aroha proposal to Council. It also contains a significant amount of the content that was used in the special consultative procedure and in the document that we released for public consultation. So that's really the basis of what's before you. Though, having said that, Councillor, it was prepared by the Te Aroha Working Party and has been given to Council officers to review. We also asked Tompkin Wake, our legal advisors, to review the document just to make sure that there wasn't anything that would create any burden on Council's decision making, and they've assured us that it does not. Councillors, the Te Aroha board have also met. They're obviously having their inauguration tomorrow, but they have had a workshop where they have looked at some of this documentation themselves in some detail. So Council, as signalled in the report, it was marked as draft. They have come back with a couple of comments, and we have had a look at those comments and also talked to our lawyers about some minor amendments to the wording. So Councillors, if at all possible, it would be helpful to insert that Council will approve the amended partnership agreement to formally partner with Te Aroha. Now Councillors, if you like, I can take you through what those minor changes are. There's one particularly important one that I will refer to. Una, if you could just hand out the documents. Councillors, it might be helpful if you just have this new document I'm circulating beside your agenda, so we can just refer to the relevant pages so you can get a feel for those minor amendments. So Councillors, as you see, you're just leafing through the document, you can just see that there's just the odd word has been highlighted there. Now again, it's just editorially what's come through there, just to make sure that the document flows better and picks up on that detail. The important change, Councillors, is on page 4. So this is on page 36 of your agenda, and it's under section 3. And it has two references in the partnership agreement document, Councillors, and that is really this, we've talked a lot during this process about the level of funding that will be provided to Te Aroha. So what's coming through in this particular section here is just an amendment to say remove the current bullet point, which is annual council funding of $250,000 to support the operations of the board, along with an additional $40,000 in election year. That bullet point has just been removed. So what we've done instead, as this is a partnership agreement, is just focus on the relationship. So that bullet point has been removed and replaced with what you see now in the amended document, which picks up on simply saying annual council funding to support the operations of the board as per a funding agreement. And again, you can see the reference in the report to this being an annual review of that funding agreement. So Councillors, that's the right place to place the funding. So it's been removed from this page, section 3, and also from section 7, where it's repeated again. So that is the only substantive change. The rest is just minor wording changes. So Councillors, happy to answer off any questions you might have.
The Bentley, then Councillor Gould.
Yeah, Mr. Gaston, through you, Madam Chair, the funding was limited to 250k or 290k or something like that. Does that mean that limit is now gone, so there's no limit?
Good question.
That's not the case. Council, through your special consultative procedure and through all of the discussions that have been held, the sum has been identified as $250,000 and $290,000 for an election year. So that has been the decision that you took when you actually adopted the proposal. So councillors, that sum will be carried forward into the funding agreement. So at this stage, the funding agreement is only for 1 year.
Entry. Thank you. So the legal fees that we're incurring at the moment, advising Te Arawa, who's paying for that? Does that come out of the 250k or is that a council expense?
The legal fees, I'm not quite clear about advising Te Arawa. What I've said here is that the working party has put in place some documentation, and from our council side, before I could recommend to you that we sign this document, we have sought the checks of Tompkin Wake. So that's our legal advisors for our legal advice.
Then Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. JP, I'm going to quote from the document we've just been given. On page number 4, to me, is that green lines, has that been taken out at the request of different parties? Because to me that's probably quite important. It says underneath, to create and foster a high trust relationship and environment that allows the parties to work together while growing within their own customs, obligations and conditions and pursuing their own interests and priorities. Now, to me, I would have thought that would have been quite important.
Councillor, you're absolutely right. That is very important, and I probably should have highlighted that one specifically. Councillor, that's actually been deleted from that page and actually reinserted on the next page. So my apology, Councillor, I should have been quite clear about that. So it's gone from the goals of the partnership on page 4 to the partnership principles on page 5.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship.
On page 5. Yes, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question relates to the last bullet point under 6.2, which says promote opportunities for Maori within council. Could you please give me what is your definition of promoting opportunities for Maori within council, because this is dangerously close to showing racial favouritism.
Would you like to speak to that, JP?
Worship, I'll probably start off and then I'll hand over to the Chief Executive really to add to that. Councillor, one of the things that we're doing as an organisation is also examining ourselves as a partner in relationship to this relationship with Te Arawa, and really looking at our own people and capability, and certainly we've identified it as a priority just to enhance the organisation's capability in being an effective and an excellent partner to Te Arawa. So there's a number of steps we're undertaking. Part of that has just been to assess the skills that we have within the organisation, and part of that is also to recognise the value we have of the staff, particularly the Māori staff within our organisation, to assist in that capability building process within the organisation. So that's the key there. It's not a case of saying there's any form of positive discrimination or anything like that within the organisation.
Are there further questions? Councillor Sarang.
2 questions, Your Worship. Page 36, the fourth bullet point, appointment of Te Arawa people to Council's strategy working groups. Could you explain to me what strategy working groups means?
Excellent question, Councillor. One of the things that we came through with the proposal, and again this was part of the special consultative procedure document we had, and part of the Te Arawa proposal, was obviously they formally request involvement with the 2 main committees of Council, and also to be involved in RMA decision making. Obviously subsequent to that we made some decisions that changed the format of that RMA involvement, and that's now recognised within the RMA Policy Committee. As far as other working groups of Council, there was also the recommendation that the Te Arawa board from time to time may see some value in recommending or suggesting that we involve particular people to be involved in other groups. Now that might be steering groups for different portfolios, or other groups that may from time to time be initiated. So again, that's one of those recommendatory functions of theirs to say, hey, this is where you need to consider some Te Arawa involvement.
Is on page 40. In regard to the second bullet point of the holding at large of the Te Arawa elections every 3 years. So clarify for me, is that next year or is it 2019?
Councillor, one of the things that the Te Arawa board will need to do is determine where that should occur. My recollections of some of the discussions that have already taken place with the new board is that they're now suggesting that probably the way they would like to see their elections is to see them undertaken shortly after or shortly before the council's triennial elections. So that suggests 2019 is their next election. Obviously, with this being established this time, they've coincided their election with the Te Arawa Lakes Trust election, and obviously run at this timing because that was what we'd asked them to do. But going forward, they're trying to see them sort of coincide either before or after the council's triennial elections.
Mr. Stewart.
Madam Chair, I haven't really got a question. I just want to applaud the parties in terms of the manner in which this agreement has been put together and an understanding of cooperation, and it clearly highlights the obligations of the council and clearly highlights the responsibilities of the members on this board. I'd be interested to highlight on page 5 of the new document. Both parties also acknowledge the council's guiding principles of good governance for elected members to council: community pride, leadership, consensus, collective responsibility, honesty and integrity, respect for others, and community engagement. And I see nothing in this document that gives anybody extra privilege. It certainly sets out the terms in which council will engage, and there is no abrogation of our responsibilities, that all decisions of all committees come before full council and can be redebated at full council and or overturned or supported. And I think that is one of the issues that many people in the community have come to me and said that they were unclear about. Once we've cleared that up, the council is the governing body and we cannot abrogate or discriminate our responsibilities in terms of that. They seem very, very comfortable with the involvement of these people, like we have in Councillor Rotorua Tate, like we have recommended to council that when the new Lakes Community Board and the new Rural Community Board, if they are supported by the Commission, will also have seats. That is our recommendation to the incoming council. They will also have seats at the committee level. So we're getting a wider cross-section of the community, sitting at the community level, having an input into council's policy. And but if a rogue decision is made at a committee level, council retains the right to amend or overturn or send it back to that committee for reconsideration. I think that point has to be made to assure the community that council does not abrogate its responsibilities. Thank you for that, Madam Chair.
Councillor Rotorua Tate.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like your permission, rather than to ask a question, just to make a comment, if I may. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it's not easy to put a partnership document together. We know that. The government, our central government, struggles with that from time to time. But of course, often people fear what they believe they will lose rather than what they will gain. And this is a document put together by a working group that has taken its time, given very, very careful thought to both partners, to the partnership. And I believe what we have here is a document that will better inform the decision making that is taken at this council. So I want to congratulate all of those who have put effort into it over many, many months to come up with the best document. And it is the best efforts at this stage. I believe it is a living document. I sincerely hope from time to time, when there is a need, that it may well be changed, come to this table for ratification and can be changed. It should remain a living document. And I believe that it has the support of Te Arawa, evidenced particularly by the calibre of the people who have recently been elected to the board. So I look forward, in the spirit, as we see here, of cooperation, what did we say, to create and foster a high trust relationship. That is definitely how we should be working, and I believe the community of Rotorua will see some excellent decision-making as a result of this partnership proposal. So I sincerely support it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say congratulations to the Working Party, the incoming board, and also to council officers who have worked in the spirit of cooperation, really, to get this ready. It's also very symbolic, really, that it comes back to this last council meeting of the year for us, and to actually approve this today is very symbolic. And for those that have been part of this journey, that have joined us in council today, I thank you sincerely for your contribution. And I can assure you, I'll save my speech for the marae tomorrow, but the rest of the country is now looking at Rotorua and Te Arawa and saying this has been a significant journey, and other councillors are coming for our advice to council to say how can we start to develop an enduring and sustainable relationship with iwi. So well done to everybody that worked to get it to this stage today. I'm sure Councillor Maxwell wants to say something.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As somebody who's going out of a position, having been on the Te Arawa Standing Committee for 20 years now, since its inception in 1993, I think it was, I too am looking forward to tomorrow. I think it's going to be a tremendous historic day down there at Tamatakapua, and yep, like I said, I'm really looking forward to it, and also thank the I'd like at this time to thank the outgoing Te Arawa Standing Committee, the current one, and the ones in the past who have served us well. I mean, when we first started out with the committee 20 years ago, we were leading in the country. Now, with the wonderful work that's been done and the process that's gone through and the patience, looking forward to tomorrow. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've got to remember that the whole Te Arawa negotiation business with the public was carried out by reasonably senior council staff and not any elected official.
Oh, well, we do remember the whole process. You're absolutely right, and it was done very diligently. So thank you for that. So now I ask for a mover of the following motion, that the council approve the partnership agreement to formally partner with Te Arawa.
It's my pleasure, Madam Chair, to move that. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt to second. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? No. Do you wish your vote? No. Right.
As a point of order, I noticed, I thought it was going to be unanimous, but I hear some voices, and I presume they are the four members who are members of the Rotorua District Residents and Ratepayers Group. On one hand, we got the minutes earlier where they declared an interest and stated they will not take part in the discussion or the voting. And then on this one here, now they're coming back into the loop. So make up their minds, what are they going to be part of?
That's not reflected in the vote, Councillor Maxwell, so I think in the spirit of cooperation we should move on.
Well, I'll call for a division, then we'll find out. I'll call for a division.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary?
1, 2, 3, there we are. members.
Thank you. The vote is carried. And the second part of the vote, that Council resolved that Mayor Chadwick and Councillor Rotorua Tate sign the partnership agreement on behalf of the Council at the signing ceremony on the 18th of December 2015. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? No. The vote is carried. Well, thank you, and that is significant to everybody sitting here, everybody who took part throughout that entire process, the special consultative process, and those participants that spoke and submitted. Today we have agreed to move forward in a very significant way. I move now to item 7.2, recommendation 2, council delegations. Yes?
Up on the board at the moment is those who voted for and against the previous motion. Can that be clarified that Councillor Kent voted for the motion? I thought he had abstained or didn't vote. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. That's as I heard Councillor Kent myself. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Yes. We now move on to item 7.2, council delegations under the Resource Management Act. If you could all go to page 45. These are quite substantial. Thank you. I call for a mover and a seconder to receive the report that I'll just read it first, thank you. That the report Council Delegations under the Resource Management Act 1991 be received. Thank you. Moved Councillor Gould, seconded Councillor Rotorua Tate. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. JP.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, I'm sure some of you will be surprised at the level of detail we've gone to in this delegation manual. In the past, we've tended to show blocks of the different sections under the RMA as they normally pertain to the Standing Committee. Now, councillors, the main reason we've separated this out is obviously now with the view that we're going to be using independent commissioners, and also separated out the strategic and the policy setting elements of the RMA function into the RMA Policy Committee. We felt it was really important to make sure we get that clarity between what sections were going to be covered by the commissioners, the independent commissioners, and what was going to be covered by the independent or the RMA Policy Committee. The other key step for us councillors is also just looking ahead. Obviously there's a number of amendments coming through or proposed to come through to the RMA, and on that basis we just wanted to make sure that we're taking the time at this point to very carefully make that differentiation between commissioners and the policy committee, so that if there is any further changes to the RMA Act over the next year or so, we're able to very specifically identify which set of delegations are affected and bring those back to you for confirmation. So councillors, that's why we have spent a significant amount of time and gone into considerably more detail than we have in the past, just to make sure that we have that clarity moving into next year. So happy to answer off any broad questions, councillors, but that's certainly the reasoning behind it.
The report for discussion, Councillor Bentley, Councillor McVicker. I can call. It's where my eyes go, and I don't have
Good as
have
gold.
complete
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
lateral
The
vision.
question I've got for Mr Gaston is, why are you bringing independent commissioners in when we did have, before we were stripped of the authority, plenty of RMA commissioners as elected members?
Of this council, not of Mr Gaston, so we voted that way accordingly. Yeah, that's right. And these are the delegations to fit our recorded vote. Councillor McVicker.
Supplementary, Madam Chair.
Yes.
What's the specific powers and duties to council officers?
They were fully outlined
Yes.
in the paper that we voted on. They were very detailed about those roles and responsibilities when we voted that day. Yeah.
And certainly, Your Worship, they are detailed through every section in the document. So if you go through that attachment, you'll see the references to the various
We'll take it
positions.
as read, thank you. Councillor McVicker.
Your Worship, JP, page 46, appointment of commissioners. You've got here the Chief Executive. I thought the Chief Operating Officer was going to be appointing commissioners.
Your Worship, what we had referenced there was that until we've appointed those independent commissioners, the Chief Executive would be authorised to appoint commissioners. So that was our interim step. If you recall, the process that we were undertaking was the Chief Operating Officer was to convene a panel to look at the criteria and then go through a request for expressions of interest process.
Hawate.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of clarification, JP. It was my understanding, and I may have this wrong, that our existing commissioners, our councillors who hold existing commissioner rank or title, whatever it is, they could and can put their name forward to be members of the panel. And is that correct? I believe it is. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think it's really important that JP has brought this report to us today to fit the recommendation that we had, because my concern was I wanted to know where the demarcation was when staff involved in decision making and don't need to refer it to the politicians, and when that case occurs. And I mean, it's right through the whole document. I'll just read section 191, and this is one of the areas where a number of business people have approached me and said, when are you involved and when aren't you involved? And it quite clearly states under section 191, powers and duties as territorial authority when considering and making a recommendation on a requirement. Officers' delegations only apply when no submissions have been received and no request is made for a hearing. But that also occurs if staff aren't involved. If, for example, someone puts a submission in supporting it or objecting to a part of it, then it goes down to the next step. All other notices or heritage orders are to be considered and determined by the commissioners. So they are protected that if a neighbour of a proposal objects, it goes to the commissioners if a hearing is required.
Question, or you're
Well,
satisfied
I'm
with the
just
clarification?
making sure
Yeah.
that is the understanding, because what is quite often written, what the understanding of what's written, can be two different matters, and the community
Very
need
much
that
so.
reassurance, and I think this document does do. I was just confirming that that is the case. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You didn't say.
I was nodding, so yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. JP, if a Rotorua commissioner was appointed to one of the hearings, would there be a greater chance of conflict of interest with Maori, with claims involving land involving Maori or iwi ownership?
Councillors, all commissioners need to be aware of the conflicts of interest, and probably more so with a commissioner. So they would certainly, if there was any chance or perception of a conflict of interest, I would certainly expect those commissioners, if they're acting professionally, to have said that they weren't someone that could usefully be involved in that hearing. Councillor, I'd also just highlight the other important point is that the way we've put forward the changes around the appointment of these independent commissioners, it's not specifically that there would be a group of commissioners and another group of Te Arawa selected commissioners. What's been proposed through this process is that Te Arawa would be involved in the selection of the commissioners. So it would be a case of saying there is just simply a pool of commissioners who have an understanding of iwi issues and also the complexities of our district, who will be appointed. Now, from that pool, it will be up to the Chief Operating Officer in conjunction with the Chair of the RMA Policy Committee to make the choice as to who the appropriate Commissioner was. And as far as that conflict of interest, certainly we would expect those Commissioners to raise those or any issues or perceived issues with those two people before they were selected for a hearing.
Maxwell?
Could I ask you, JP, of the recently elected members for our information who were successful in the Te Arawa elections, were any meet the criteria for the as commissioners?
That may be something that we will discuss at a later date, because those have to come forward from the board.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
Okay.
Wait for the
Right.
official.
Yeah. So I now ask for a mover and a seconder that Council resolves to adopt the Rotorua District Council Register of Delegations under the Resource Management Act. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Maxwell, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. We now move recommendation 3. This is a mover and a seconder. And adoption report be received. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And the report up for discussion. Amy?
Okay.
Any salient points that need to hear or be appraised of?
Oh, I got it. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I wonder if it's best to talk through each separately. So if I maybe cover off the salient points for the first bylaw, and then we have a discussion, and then the second, so we don't confuse the two. So is that okay if we proceed that way?
It's absolutely fine.
All right, we're good to go. Thank you, Councillor Tapsell. Okay, so the first one that we will cover off is the Signs on Roads bylaw. So I'll just briefly go through the submissions that were received and the rationale for the recommendations. So there were 4 submissions received, and 2 of those were made verbally and 2 in written form. So we had Peter Duncan of the Wedding Guy Company. Essentially, his submission was in support of having some additional temporary event advertising signage. And so what we've concluded from that is that the amendment we've already put into the bylaw actually covers that nicely in terms of the change that we had made. So no further changes are required to address his submission because it is covered for under the new clause of 9.6. He also mentioned wanting to change the duration of the event. Clause 9.6 doesn't actually specify a duration, so that's open to council when we do come back to you, probably early in the new year with some suggested sites and so on to determine what the appropriate time frame is at that stage. The second submission, just to talk through, is from the Rotorua District Residents and Ratepayers Society. So this submission was largely around concern in terms of the words "but not limited to" in the definitions, and how they may be prejudicially applied to temporary yellow signs on private property. So essentially, just need to really clarify that the bylaw does not have any weight or authority with respect to private property. It's the district plan that deals with signs on private property, and so when you're administering a district plan consent or the rules under the district plan, there is no need to go to a bylaw for a definition or to refer to a bylaw in any way for a definition. In fact, there is a definition for temporary event signs within the district plan that would be sufficient. So On that basis, we see no need to make that change for this particular bylaw. And also noting that those words, but not limited to, were actually in the original bylaw. What the changes we've made have been actually different in terms of splitting out the definition into one for directional signs and one for advertising signage. And the last two submissions were both from power companies concerned with their ability to put their regulatory signs on the road reserve. This is catered for within the definition of what a road network sign is, but for clarity and to respond to their submissions, we've suggested making the simple changes to clauses 8 and 8.1 to add the word regulatory signs, just to cover that off. So essentially that is the recommended changes for the signs on roads bylaw. If you'd like to take questions.
I'll open that up for questions. Councillor Kent had a question, and Councillor Sarank.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't see any comment here about my recommendation. Following the submission from the Rotorua District residents and ratepayers pointing out the ambiguity of the way things were actually phrased with about not limited to, I did point out at that meeting that inserting commas before and after but not limited to is the usual legal phraseology and does remove the ambiguity. I would recommend to staff that they reinsert those commas for clarity.
Want to speak to that, Amy? Ones that are the experts in.
Sure. I think the response to that was the need to, I think the submitter's response to that was wanting to clarify with a legal opinion. And I guess in our view, it was not something that we wanted to spend money seeking a legal advice on, and that it was actually clear enough as it was.
Bentley?
Can we get some new ones of these? No, it's just nothing to do with what Amy's presenting. I see the rather large unit of our security up there standing. Let him have a seat.
I think he's fine. And okay. Councillor.
Madam Chair. Did press it before, that the U-Traffic Bylaw 2015 and the Signs Bylaw 2015 shall come into force and take effect on the 23rd of December, yet this meeting is the 17th of December and it gets ratified today, if it gets passed. Why doesn't it come into effect tomorrow?
That was just simply to get us time to get it onto the website and available for people to view. So just to give the staff a little bit of time to get it, because we've got to do a seal and get it signed and stamped and then loaded onto the website. So we just thought it would be unfair, I guess, to have it ratified and available, well, I guess enforced from today, but not easily necessarily available where you would expect to find it on the website. And so it's merely just a communication for the public. If you wanted to change that, that wouldn't be a problem. It would just be we'd need to work a little faster to get the admin done.
Does it mean all the signage will be up on or before the 23rd of December? I'm
not sure what signage you're referring to.
Councillor Gould, I think that's an operational issue. When we decide to support these bylaws, then the staff implement the bylaws. That would be correct. It'd be right, yeah. Yes, Councillor Srink.
Along those lines, on the new 9.6, I presume this doesn't preclude other sites. If council came up with 6 or 7 sites, we would put these particular frames. It doesn't preclude other sites?
It's for temporary event signs only. So it must meet the temporary event sign definition.
Okay. So it doesn't preclude the temporary event.
So if it's a temporary event, then this clause does apply. If it was another type of sign, a real estate sign or a different type of sign, then that wouldn't be able to go on these structures.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but if say, giving a practical example, a theatre is putting up an advertising, core flute, do they have to go on these particular situations?
If it's the road reserve, yes, they do.
Okay. And if there's too many events for the number of signage boards?
I guess then we'd need to come back to you in terms of saying, do we want to add more signage boards at different locations around the district?
So are there any, Councillor Rokawate?
Chair. Amy, I'm presuming that these are just for fixed sites. Because what I'm referring to is sometimes around town, you see big containers with signs on, and it is for an event, it's for a temporary event coming along. Then you see trailers with a big sign on, and those signs are bigger than any other signs that we're giving, asking people to comply with. So I'm just wondering, are these bylaws for fixed signs or mobile signs, if you want to call them that, or portable signs perhaps?
Thank you, Councillor. There is a separate clause in here for trailer-mounted signs, and that hasn't changed in the bylaw. So I'm just trying to find where it is in there now.
Clause
954.
954.
So it's in here, covered.
So if you look at page 129 to 130, the clause 9.5 is for trailer-mounted temporary event signage.
Councillor Gould? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sturt and then Councillor Gould.
For work out going through each bylaw.
No, these are this is the signage first.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
more interested in the traffic bylaw.
Well,
which is the first
we'll get to that. So we're sticking to questions on the signage because Amy spoke to that first. Councillor Gould?
Madam Chair, on page 107, 9.6, 9.6.2, says council may by resolution from time to time identify locations on roads within the district where placing of a temporary event sign is authorised. Do you mean council staff or do you mean councillors as a council policy direction?
That is this council, your council here, must make a resolution to say that these set sites are available for temporary event advertising. Not by staff, no.
Councillor Sturt?
From a sport and recreation angle, which I look at, if a big sign was requested by the New Zealand Rugby Union for the Maoris versus the Lions match in 2017, it was for a way ahead of the defined period, that would have to come to full council. Is that there's no discretion in terms of staff for that type of advertising. And I think of the one on State Highway 5, where the Waikato Chiefs have always put a big sign on the side of a barn, and I know New Zealand Transport Authority have had to give permission for that.
If it's on the side of a barn, it will generally be, I presume, under private property, so it'll be covered by the district plan. There is a clause in the Signs on Road bylaw around permits for signs, so I probably need my partner here, Nevin, who's actually not here, in terms of how they administer the permits component of it. But if you read the 9.5 section, I would say that by council resolution, that would be something you would be able to allow for.
All right. Now, Amy, there doesn't appear to be more questions on that. Could you move now to the next bylaw? Thank you.
No problem. Traffic bylaw. Okay, so we had two submissions to the traffic bylaw. One was an internal submission from Peter Dine, and Transport Operations Manager. And that was just essentially suggesting a provision be made in the bylaw for council to declare by resolution that any road entrance be restricted to one way, or a U-turn not be permitted at any turning point. So we've agreed with that resolution to give that power to council through that. And so we've suggested a new clause 29, which you can read there. The second submission, which was also made verbally, was from Area Commander Bruce Horn, and that was with respect to the window washers. And so he was submitting in support of that, essentially changing that clause to be, instead of just being an intersection, to being any public place where the criteria in terms of nuisance and safety and so on were, being met. And he also expressed this fact that it would be very desirable to be able to issue infringement notices for window washers in terms of, for an enforcement. However, we make this bylaw under the Local Government Act, which doesn't give us the powers to actually issue infringement notices. So at this stage, really it is around, prosecution is the way that this bylaw is enforced. So we did note that obviously, though, it does give them the opportunity to demand that they desist from doing that and to move them on if they're doing it in an unsafe or a manner which is a nuisance.
Questions? And you had a question, Councillor Stewart.
Clause 16. Well, it's actually really good to get that out in the public, the parking of heavy motor vehicles, and particular logging trucks in a residential area. Amy, is the provision under section 33 that every person who commits a breach of this bylaw is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $20,000? Is that every breach of this particular bylaw a summary fine up to $20,000 can occur? Does it depend on the severity, or is it specific to certain areas? Because the parking of logging trucks in the residential area, that's one thing we get a lot of complaints about, and the damage they do to infrastructure, that's water pipes into the property and also curbing and channeling. That's not a new provision, but are they liable if they exceed the hour provision? Are they liable on prosecution to a fine not exceeding $20,000?
My understanding is yes. So this exactly as it reads here, that if you commit a breach of the bylaw, that you are liable. Obviously, depending on the severity, I guess it would be the judge's call in terms of a court's call around whether it's a $200 fine or whether it is something as severe as the maximum of the threshold of 30,000.
Just one final question. How do we get that message out? Are we certainly going to, I mean, we've got some major heavy vehicle trucking firms in Rotorua, and I'm sure they'd be blown away if every time they, unless they were over that hour, there was a complaint about this and they were sidled up by a policeman with a fine up to $20,000. It would certainly stop the practice. I just hope that we're proactive in making the trucking firms aware that this is the bylaw. I mean, we got no submissions on it in the past, and a lot of the new truck drivers don't even know about it because I've asked them.
Okay, well, that's would be something to have a discussion with Dave Foster and the compliance team in terms of how they want to approach that, of what sort of stance they want to take.
Weber?
Oh, could I just take the opportunity, Madam Chair, to say that in the past when these have come to staff's attention and I've raised them, they've gone and warned them. So they've gone and warned people first. It hasn't just that they suddenly get a fine.
Okay.
So I think that staff work very well with the community. But yeah, absolutely. And just for when someone I think was asking a question, the permits for signs is part 5 on page 130. So that gives you the detail that someone asked for.
Further questions? Well, I now ask for a mover for the following motion, which are recommendations 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 on your screen. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Kent. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you, Amy. Move now to item 8, confidential items. Resolution to go into public excluded. Do I have a mover and a seconder that council move into public excluded session? Councillor Rokawa Tate, Councillor Hunt. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Could you put your hand up, please? All those, division, all those in favour to go into public excluded, please raise their hands. You got that? And against? The motion is carried, 7 to 6. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Record. We've got all of those recorded against on the screen. Thank you. Could I please ask the public now it's time to leave the gallery?
Madam Chair, can we take a 5-minute recess, please? Thank you.